Kính thưa quý vị khán thính giả của chương trình PhoBolsaTV. Hôm nay là ngày 8 Tây tháng 9 năm 2015. Chúng tôi đang có mặt tại tư gia của Đại sứ Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam, ông Ted Osius. Ngày hôm nay chúng ta sẽ tiếp xúc với ông Ted Osius để hỏi rất nhiều về quan hệ Việt-Mỹ trong 20 năm qua, cũng như liên quan tới chuyến đi của ông vừa qua tới thăm rất nhiều cá nhân và hội đoàn trong cộng đồng Việt Nam tại quận Cam vào đầu tháng 7 vừa qua. Xin kính chào ông Ted Osius.
Xin chào, rất vui gặp lại.
Rất vui và rất là hân hạnh được đại sứ mời tới tư gia để có buổi nói chuyện ngày hôm nay. Trước hết, câu hỏi liên quan tới quan hệ Việt Nam và Hoa Kỳ. Đại sứ Ted Osius xưa kia đã từng là phụ tá của ông đại sứ đầu tiên của Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam, ông Pete Peterson. Và nay chính ông lại là một đại sứ đương kim của Việt Nam ở Việt Nam hiện nay. Ông có thể cho biết cái nhận xét, cái quan sát của rất riêng ông trong suốt quá trình tiến triển của quan hệ Việt-Mỹ từ bấy lâu nay, thưa ông?
First of all, I'm incredibly proud to be able to follow Pete Peterson in this job. Pete was one of my heroes. He's been a mentor to me. He was a fantastic ambassador, and it's a dream come true to be able to follow in his footsteps and to be the United States representative in Vietnam. And it's a really exciting time to be the U.S. representative in Vietnam, because in this 20th anniversary of normalization of relations, our relationship is moving forward faster and farther than ever before. We are deepening our ties in many areas, in trade, in science and technology, in engagement on health, on the environment, in development of rule of law in Vietnam. We even have a security relationship. So it's exciting when there's a positive agenda. And right now the agenda between the United States and Vietnam is very positive and gives me cause for great optimism.
Từng là hai nước đối đầu với nhau trong chiến tranh Việt Nam. Nay thì là hai nước hướng tới cái mối quan hệ toàn diện, mối quan hệ chiến lược. Ông có thể cho biết vì sao, cái điều gì đã đưa hai nước lại với nhau như thế, thưa ông?
Well, first of all, our leaders made a decision 20 years ago that it was time to look forward and to have a new relationship. And I think it was a brave decision. It wasn't an easy decision to normalize relations. But it was one that was based on mutual interest. This is now a country of 92 million people. It's a fast-growing economy. It has a 3,000-kilometer coastline along the South China Sea. It is a very, very important country in the most dynamic region in the world, which is Southeast Asia. And so it's in the interest of the United States to have a good relationship with Vietnam. It's in Vietnam's interest as well. Vietnam can use partners. It's a region where it's beneficial to have good partners. Vietnam is very devoted to the success of ASEAN. The United States is also very devoted to the success of ASEAN in this region, and to the countries of the region working together to maintain peace and promote prosperity. And we also have an extraordinary asset in this relationship, which is that we have over 2 million người Mỹ gốc Việt, Americans of Vietnamese origin. And there's an interest in that community in the relationship that is very, very beneficial to ultimately deepening the relationship in areas such as the economy, education, cultural cooperation, exchange between peoples. And that gives a special incentive to deepening this comprehensive partnership.
Nếu mà ai đó theo dõi cái tiến trình quan hệ Việt-Mỹ trong suốt thời gian qua thì thấy dường như là trong cái tiến trình mà thương lượng giữa đôi bên từ trước cũng như là sau khi hai nước lập lại quan hệ ngoại giao, thì thấy dường như Việt Nam đã nhân nhượng khá nhiều đối với Hoa Kỳ trong nhiều vấn đề, từ những cái vấn đề liên quan tới bồi thường chiến tranh, nạn nhân chất độc màu da cam, rồi sau này là cái vấn đề liên quan tới dân chủ, nhân quyền, vân vân. Ông có nhìn thấy là Hoa Kỳ đang đứng ở một cái thế nước lớn thương lượng với một cái thế nước nhỏ trong cái quan hệ không bình đẳng hay không, thưa ông?
I don't see it that way. In my view, it's to America's advantage to have powerful partnerships. And those partnerships may be with countries that are bigger than the United States, like India, or similar in population size to the United States, like Indonesia, or smaller than the United States, like Vietnam. But these are all powerful partnerships. They're all good. It's good for the United States to have partnerships in Asia. And it's good for those countries to have partnerships with the United States. And whenever you develop a partnership, it involves mutual respect. Yes, it involves some compromise and some negotiation, but above all, I think it requires mutual respect. And it requires building a relationship based on mutual interest and based on the ability not only to do things together bilaterally, but also to go out in the world and do things that matter to the world. All of the world's problems are complex and have to be solved by more than one nation. And the United States benefits when it has partnerships with countries like Vietnam and can work with those countries to resolve the most difficult problems the world faces.
Việt Nam và Hoa Kỳ xưa kia đã từng là bình thường, là có quan hệ bình thường với nhau, rồi trở nên hai kẻ cựu thù trong thời gian chiến tranh, rồi giờ đây trở thành bạn bè một cách thân thiết như vậy. Liệu rằng trong tương lai, không ai biết trước được, liệu rằng trong tương lai có những gì đột biến có thể làm cho cái quan hệ giữa hai nước trở nên xấu đi, hoặc thậm chí trở nên cựu thù như trước đây hay không, thưa ông?
It's my job to make sure that we lay the foundation for a long partnership. This should be a partnership that extends many decades. And some of the things that we're engaged in doing, such as negotiating the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement and establishing a new American-style university, Fulbright University Vietnam, are designed to make sure that this is a partnership that lasts. And if you have a strong economic base to a relationship, and if you have strong people-to-people ties, then even when things are sometimes rocky in the political level, you can maintain forward momentum in a partnership. And I believe that it's my job to do all that I can to make sure that this is a lasting, durable partnership that weathers whatever political storms might come. And I mentioned that the cộng đồng, người Mỹ gốc Việt, that the Vietnamese American community is an asset in this relationship. I have spent some time talking to members of that community, especially in California, but also on the East Coast. And that has led me to the conclusion that a very important aspect of this relationship is figuring out how to promote reconciliation. And when I say reconciliation, I mean, how do you make it easier for more people to pass back and forth between the two countries, and so that we can understand each other better? More students, more business people, more tourists. I think it's tremendously important to have those ties deepened, and I think it's possible. Reconciliation doesn't mean we're going to see eye to eye with the Vietnamese government on everything. Part of reconciliation, in my view, is strengthening the rule of law. Vietnam's government continuing to strengthen the rule of law, making progress on respect for human rights, respecting religious freedom, respecting freedom of speech. Those are all elements of a successful reconciliation between our two countries. Because the United States is a country in which those values are very dear. They're very fundamental to who Americans are. And so if reconciliation is to be a successful process, it will involve more than just trade. It will involve people going back, and more than just governments, but people working together to make that reconciliation process real.
Không biết từ bao giờ có cái cách suy nghĩ thế này, nói rằng là người Mỹ thì không có bạn bè vĩnh viễn mà cũng không có kẻ thù vĩnh viễn, mà chỉ có cái mối quan hệ có lợi giữa hai phía thì nó vững bền với nước Mỹ. Ông có thể cho biết rằng cái câu đó nó chính xác như thế nào, và Việt Nam cũng như những nước khác nên hiểu về cái câu đó như thế nào và nên áp dụng cái đó vào cái quan hệ với Hoa Kỳ như thế nào cho có lợi?
Well, you're talking about the debate between those who are focused on realpolitik versus those who focus on values. And I'm not an academic. I'm a diplomat. I believe there are elements of interest in any relationship, and there are elements of values in any relationship. And what I see in the U.S.-Vietnam relationship are the ingredients for a long-term partnership, because there's so much that binds us together. There's so many interests that pull us together, but there are also people who pull us together. And this is why I focus on the Vietnamese American community as so important. When you have, I talked to people who in Orange County who work for NGOs that provide health services in this country. I talk to people who volunteer their time and their energy and their expertise to make life better for people in this developing country that is still poor and that still suffers from some of the after effects of a terrible war. And I think when you have people who are engaged because of their values, who believe it's right to engage with a country and try to make lives better for its people, then you have the basis for a long relationship, a long friendship. And I think that actually matters to me more. What I see happening between people matters to me more than the theories I hear about what works in international relations and what doesn't. I've seen in my 28 years as a diplomat how people reaching out to one another make a difference in the kind of relationship two countries can have.
Sau 20 năm quan hệ giữa Hoa Kỳ và Việt Nam thì chắc chắn là có rất nhiều những cái thành quả. Ông có thể lược qua những cái thành quả rất quan trọng, rất căn bản trong cái quan hệ giữa hai nước suốt 20 năm qua, thưa ông?
Well, very important to me is the fact that when I was here 20 years ago, there were about 800 students who went from Vietnam to the United States to study each year. Now there are 17,000 students. When I was here before, there was about $400 million a year in trade. Now there's 36 billion per year and rising. Now the United States is the fourth largest sender of tourists to Vietnam. We have a huge amount going on in the fields of education and health and science and technology, where there are these exchanges that are very rich between our peoples. And I really think that that ultimately is going to matter even more than the fact that we have a lot of high-level visits between the two countries, because it's always people, business people, tourists, students, who are out in front in this relationship. And in the 20 years that I've been observing this relationship, it's always been people who have gone ahead and governments that have tried to catch up. And I see that still happening, and I think that's exactly as it should be.
Bên cạnh những cái thành quả mà ông vừa mới nói, còn một cái vấn đề mà Hoa Kỳ thường hay nhắc nhở Việt Nam, đó là cái vấn đề tình trạng nhân quyền, tình trạng dân chủ mà rất nhiều người Việt Nam ở hải ngoại cũng thường quan tâm. Thì ông nhận xét như thế nào về cái tiến triển của việc đó?
Well, I consider myself the chief human rights officer in the embassy. I carry all the time a card that's a reminder of the kinds of progress that we hope to seek on human rights with Vietnam. And I'm very clear, and members of my mission are very clear about what we hope to see in terms of human rights progress in Vietnam. And the President of the United States, when he met with Nguyen Phu Trong, Thong Bì Thư, very clear that the United States places great importance on freedom of religion, freedom of expression, that the United States objects when people are imprisoned for criticizing the government, that progress for our partnership to achieve its full potential, there has to be continued progress on human rights. And for TPP to succeed, there has to be continued progress on human rights, because our Congress places great importance on this issue. And this is who we are. This is who Americans are. And I see myself as trying to represent those values here and trying to be as clear as possible with the leaders of Vietnam what progress looks like, so that there's no doubt in the minds of leaders about what we hope and expect.
Bây giờ thì xin hỏi ông đôi điều về chuyến đi của ông tới quận Cam vào đầu tháng 7 vừa qua. Ông có thể cho biết là từ nguyên nhân nào, từ bao giờ đã hình thành cái chuyến đi này, cũng như là mục tiêu của chuyến đi, và theo ông thì cái kết quả của chuyến đi đó như thế nào, thưa ông?
Each of my predecessors has visited Orange County. I'm the sixth ambassador to have traveled there. And I felt it was very important, most of all as a learning experience. I wanted to be able to understand what are the concerns, what are the passions, what is it that motivates this very important community, because the community of Người Mỹ gốc Việt is going to make a big difference going forward in this relationship. So I went there to learn, and I learned a lot about the challenges of reconciliation. I learned how hard reconciliation is, and how deeply how deep the feelings are of the people in that community about the reconciliation process. The majority of the people whom I met in California, just as the majority of the people who I meet here, want reconciliation. Most people would like to see a deeper relationship between our two countries. They'd like to have people pass back and forth freely. There are some people who don't want reconciliation, but I think they are a small number compared to the large number of people who really do want reconciliation. So I think part of my job is to promote that reconciliation and to do all I can to make it easier for people to have exchanges and to deepen the ties between our two countries and our two peoples.
Trong chuyến đi đó, ông đã tiếp xúc với rất là nhiều những cái nhóm khác nhau, những nhân vật khác nhau. PhoBolsaTV chúng tôi cũng đã có dịp ít nhất là theo dõi 4 cuộc gặp gỡ của ông. Trong những cuộc gặp gỡ đó, thấy có những người, những tổ chức luôn luôn đặt vấn đề một cách trực tiếp với ông và nói với ông rằng là phía Việt Nam đang đàn áp, đang vi phạm những cái vấn đề nhân quyền một cách rất là trầm trọng. Qua công việc của ông ở đây, qua cái sự quan sát trực tiếp của ông ở đây, thì xin hỏi ông một câu rất là trực tiếp vào vấn đề là ông có đồng ý với những cái phản ánh đó của những người mà ông đã vừa nghe qua ở quận Cam vừa qua hay không thưa ông?
First of all, I met with at least 15, maybe 20 groups in Orange County. I heard a lot of opinions, a lot of views, and some people were quite concerned about human rights in Vietnam. But actually, I'm quite concerned about the human rights situation in Vietnam. I see progress. When I came here 20 years ago, there was less freedom to worship, there was less freedom of expression, and there were more people in jail for expressing their beliefs. There has been continued progress during the past 20 years, and I think there's been progress even during the last 8 or 9 months. And my job is to make sure there continues to be progress in this area. And I am optimistic. I think there are many forces at work that lead to me being optimistic that the situation will be better by the time I leave than it was when I arrived. So while I share the concerns of many people in the Vietnamese American community, I'm going to keep working on it. I'm not just going to be concerned, I'm going to work on this issue, and I'm going to work with willing partners here to see if we can't keep making progress.
Khi chúng tôi ở đó thì thấy có một vị hòa thượng tên là Thích Viên Lý đã tới với ông vài lần, đề nghị ông chú ý tới một cái vấn đề mà hòa thượng Thích Viên Lý nói rằng là nhà nước Việt Nam đang phá hủy một cái ngôi chùa tên là chùa Liên Trì ở Thủ Thiêm, và cũng có nhận thấy là ông đã nhận lời nói rằng ông sẽ làm việc về việc đó. Ông có thể cập nhật về, không biết cái chuyện đó là thực hư như thế nào, và ông có thể cập nhật về chuyện đó.
We've had several meetings subsequent to that, and the issue's not yet resolved, but we're still working on it. You might have noticed that recently I visited a temple during the Vu Lan festival. I went to the Chùa Quan Sư, and I feel like sometimes the best way to support religious freedom is to show that it matters. And that's why I went with my family, to show that these practices matter. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom was here last week, and they had a chance to interview people everywhere about the situation. They weren't stopped in any of their meetings. They were allowed to meet with everybody they wanted to. And I think we need to continue to show that this matters. The United States was founded on the principle of religious freedom. Goes right to the core of who Americans are. So it's something that matters a great deal to us, and I'll continue to devote a lot of energy to it.
When you come to Orange County, you keep asking people not taking your picture with the flag, 3 red stripe on the yellow flags, because you're going to lose your job if they do so. A lot of people are very concerned, very upset about it, and up to the point they want to ask the State Department to take their job away. Back to the past, Mr. Devonshire didn't have problem with that, so a lot of people concerned about it. They want to know what is this come from? Like, is this like the policy directly from the State Department prevent you from doing show? That's why you say if you do show, you're gonna lose your job. Can you explain very detailedly about that, please?
Well, first of all, I'm sad about that controversy because I think overall the visits to both Orange County and San Jose were very positive, and I was able to learn a great deal. I'm sad that that controversy persists. I'd like to be very clear. I respect the yellow flag. It is an important symbol to many, many people, and I never asked anybody not to display it themselves. All I asked was that I not be photographed with it because it would make me less effective in doing my job here. And I am accredited, formally accredited, to a country whose capital is Hanoi and that has a red flag. That's the country with which I do business. That's the government with which I do business on a daily basis. And it won't benefit anybody, least of all those who want to promote human rights, religious freedom, freedom of speech, if I am made less effective by being photographed with a symbol that I respect, but a symbol that won't enhance my ability to do my job. So I'm sorry it was of concern to so many people. It's really, for me, it's just simply a matter of increasing my ability to represent, enhancing my ability to represent the American people and our values, and not taking away from that ability. That's why I ask not to be photographed. But I respect the flag, the yellow flag. I respect people's rights to display it, and I understand why it means so much to so many people, and I respect that as well.
So, in fact, this exactly is not going to be like you losing your job taking picture with the flag, but like it's like lessen your ability to do the job here as an ambassador.
That's right. That's right. And I would like the dialogue with the cộng đồng, người Mỹ gốc Việt. I would like that dialogue to continue. My plan is every time I go back to the United States, I'd like to be able to talk to people in that community. And even when I'm here, we can use social media and interviews such as this to continue to communicate, because I think that community is terribly important to this relationship. I think it's part of my responsibility is to maintain a dialogue with that community. And next month I'll have an opportunity to meet with more people from that community.
Nhiều người Mỹ gốc Việt, cộng đồng Việt Nam ở bên Hoa Kỳ rất là mơ tới một cái viễn cảnh là cộng đồng Việt Nam giống như là một cộng đồng Do Thái. Nơi đó cộng đồng Việt Nam rất mạnh và có một cái quan hệ rất tốt với lại một cái nước Việt Nam cởi mở, ổn định, dân chủ và đa đảng. Ông nghĩ thế nào về cái viễn cảnh đó? Cái viễn cảnh đó có khả thi hay không? Và làm như thế nào? Cộng đồng Việt Nam cũng như ở Việt Nam làm như thế nào để mà đưa tới một cái viễn cảnh như vậy? Hoa Kỳ có thể làm được gì trong cái tiến trình đó, thưa ông?
There are two parts to that question, and I'll answer first the multi-party democracy part and then the part about the community. The policy of the United States government is that it is Vietnam that will choose what form of government that it has, not any other country. Vietnam, the Vietnamese people who will decide what form of government they have, and the United States respects that system of government, whatever it is. That is the policy of the United States. The question you ask about the community, I think, is a very important one. There are more than 2 million Vietnamese Americans, and they represent both parties. They're Democrats, they're Republicans. They have done extremely well in the United States. They are a successful community in so many ways, and that leads me to think that they will continue to have political influence, they will continue to have a strong economic influence, and they will continue to have an ability to influence the kind of relationship that the United States has with Vietnam. I watched this with regard to another community, the Indian American community, and how much an influence that community had on the development of our relationship with India. I could see a similar dynamic developing with người Mỹ gốc Việt and having a great deal of influence on the kind of relationship we have with Vietnam. And if that community, and I think the majority of the members of that community would like to see a deeper relationship, would like to see reconciliation, including the reconciliation that I spoke about, which is greater respect for human rights, for freedom of speech, for religious freedom. And I believe that that is all possible. I believe when you premise it on the basis of changing the system of government, then it's not possible. Then that community loses its ability to influence the kind of relationship that we have with Vietnam. You have to start, as the United States government has done, with saying we can accept a different form of government. If you can't accept that, then it will be very, very difficult to have an influence on the relationship.
Xin cảm ơn ông rất nhiều cho buổi tiếp xúc ngày hôm nay. Rất là nhiều thời giờ của ông. Trước khi chấm dứt thì ông cho một lời chia sẻ với những người Việt Nam, kể cả trong nước lẫn ngoài nước, thưa ông. Thank you very much for your time today. Before we end it, can you share some thought to our audience, Vietnamese, in the country, also overseas, please?
Trước hết, tôi muốn nói tôi rất là tự hào để làm việc ở đây, để làm đại sứ Hoa Kỳ ở Việt Nam, và cho tôi là một ước mơ cho tôi trở thành hiện thực, để làm việc ở đây về thúc đẩy quan hệ chặt chẽ hơn giữa hai nước. Tôi thấy đó là trách nhiệm rất là tốt đẹp. Tôi rất là muốn thúc đẩy một quan hệ tốt hơn giữa hai nước, và tôi cảm ơn các ông bà để nghe tôi, và tôi rất là muốn sự ủng hộ của cộng đồng người Mỹ gốc Việt để phát triển một quan hệ chặt chẽ hơn giữa hai nước. Cảm ơn nhiều lắm.
Thank you very much.